And ladies and gentlemen, introducing to you our MC for today. Attorney Roderick R.C. Salazar III is a senior partner of Philippine law firm Fortun Narvasa Salazar. With over 39 years in practice of law, he specializes in mining, corporate and commercial law, merger and acquisition, real estate law, taxation, projects, energy and natural resources law. He is an active member of the Chamber of Mines of the Philippines, executive and legal committees, and a trustee of the Philippine Mining, Exploration and Association. TQ was recently included as an icon in the Asia Business Law Journal list of 2025 Top 100 Lawyers in the Philippines. And in previous years, he was also listed in 2025 edition and in the past edition of International's Who's Who of Mining Lawyers for the Philippines. He was ranked as a leading lawyer in natural resources and mining by the Chamber Global 2025 and the prior years and highly recommended as a leading lawyer in the project Energy and Natural Resources by the Chamber's Asia Pacific 2025. He is included in the Asia Legal 500 2026 edition, Hall of Fame for Lawyers in Projects and Energy, and considered as a leading partner in corporate law by the Asia Legal 500 2025 edition and the prior years. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause to our MC for today, Attorney Roderick R.C. Salazar III.
Thank you, Joanne, for that very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We have a full house today. I hope this is not because you don't have your Valentine's dates and all you have is the Philippine Mining Club. But certainly welcome again, and on behalf of the Philippine Mining Club, I'm glad you're all here. This is the 82nd PMC Luncheon and the first for the year 2026. And incidentally, I must greet you also Kung Hai Pat Choi for the Chinese New Year, right? So we are honored to have with us our esteemed colleagues in the government, our government dignitaries, our valued members from the Philippine Mining Club and the Philippine Mineral Exploration Association, and of course our dedicated marketing partners whose generous support makes events like this possible. Thank you for being here again and continuously standing with us in advancing meaningful conversations in the mining industry. Today's luncheon is more than just a meal. It is an opportunity to learn from our outstanding resource speakers, to gain insights from them and hopefully to give us information in respect of our respective work. And also to foster stronger connections through networking. I encourage all of you to enjoy the presentations, enjoy the lunch, engage with one another, and take full advantage of this gathering of minds and opportunities. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of Yaman PH. It's an organization consisting of mining, engineering, and geology students from Mapua University, the University of the Philippines, and Adamson University. Can you guys please stand up if you're present? Oh, there you are. These are the future of the mining industry in the Philippines. And if you have the job opportunities for them, please approach them, and you likewise approach them. Thank you. So we will be issuing certificates of attendance to attendees who require such, and you can request a copy from PNC, Joanne, through the email address info@philippineminingclub.com. And then after the speaking engagements, we will hold a question and answer. So, ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker for today is Mr. Myke Jones, the director of Enmintech. Myke Jones is the managing director and the principal surveyor of Enmintech based in Indonesia. He is a fellow of OSIMM and has held multiple corporate roles with mining technology companies both in Australia and overseas, including Micromine and Cube Consulting over the last 30 years. So ladies and gentlemen, to talk about geophysics, the next level, cutting edge innovations, Mr. Myke.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity of speaking here today. The title of my talk today is Geophysics, the Next Level, but I'm not going to bore you with the deep technical. What we're finding in the geophysical aerial survey space is that as software and AI develops, the need for improving how you do your surveys is becoming very apparent. And I've called this presentation today The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, because there are some very good things happening, there are some bad things, and there's some very ugly things occurring. So just to give you a little bit of background, back in 2016 when survey drones first came on the market, the market was relatively small at around 2.8 billion. The Chinese manufacturers were dominant there, largely due to government backing, but there were many small startups, but they were focused on consumer drones. Moving forward to 25, we got around 800 manufacturers. The market's ballooned to 36 billion, projected to go to 53 billion by 2030. And again, the Chinese manufacturers remain dominant, but we see other manufacturers coming up based in France and America. The military development is racing ahead, but really that focuses on dropping things on people and not really what we're going to discuss today. So the good things about UAVs and exploration, they're amazingly high performance. The cameras, the sensors, the batteries are all racing ahead. The navigation, the photography is amazing. It's very quick to mobilise. Your security clearances are minimal. You're getting very fast, amazingly accurate results, and prices for the surveys dropped significantly. Even 7-8 years ago, getting an image like that, which is a LiDAR image with photography draped on it, of a island down in mine down at eastern Indonesia, you would have had to engage a helicopter to do that, and it would have cost you $3,500 an hour. This is a fairly straightforward job for a UAV. So the bad things, not everything is good. Our climate is tough on electronics. The high humidity, the frequent rain, challenges our battery life. The sensor performance, moisture is the enemy of electronics. The extreme topography we've got here in the Philippines and Indonesia, accessing areas where we can launch our UAVs is difficult. High winds, electrical interference, wildlife, eagles. Over in Indonesia we get bears and we get tigers. We've seen their footprints, we haven't seen one yet though. Aggressive illegal miners, landowners, what are you doing here? Get off, we don't want you here. Insurance has become prohibitively expensive for these. It's just another aerial image. Still on the bad, yes, it keeps going. The regulatory framework is just not there. For pilots and UAVs, privacy issues aren't keeping up at all. China is dominating the manufacture, and this has sparked huge concerns about data security, because you find if you want any firmware updates on your DJI drone, you have to tick a box that says allow us access to your data. The communications are incredibly fragile. It's line of sight. We lose line of sight. All sorts of things happen. Transporting batteries, really problematic and increasingly so. Just 3 weeks ago in Jakarta, we had a battery fall off a workbench. It exploded. We killed 22 people. That was just a battery. So that was a very sobering incident, but these things are dangerous. You overcharge them, they will explode, there's no doubt. We know that. Lack of skilled personnel is another real problem. Now the ugly, and yeah, there's some ugly things happening. A surveying drone is not a happy snap drone. It's way different. It's a technical piece of equipment, and the manufacturers are misleading you. They're saying push a button, you're going to get a map. Push a button, you're going to get a volume. It just doesn't happen. There are companies, particularly I've seen in Indonesia, offering UAV surveys, and they're substandard. We've had attacks by wildlife. Large eagles are protective, particularly around seashores. We get multipath, which is when GPS signals bounce in at an oblique angle. The UAV lands, gets lost. It lands wherever it wants. The battery performance, one cell in 100 fails, the UAV lands wherever it wants. We've had incidents of them landing in the middle of a lake, in the middle of a jungle, no reason but because of that. And just unexplained crashes. The last one on the ugly side, a lot of people, I mean, we get taxi drivers in Jakarta offering to do a UAV survey for you, right? They have absolutely no idea between the difference between a spheroid, an ellipsoid, a geoid transformations, which are tough stuff, and but it's incredibly important for companies like you. You're making decisions that's going to cost you millions of dollars, and you've got a drill hole or a surface that's out by 20 metres. You do your mine design, and it's 20 metres up in the air, and when you hit reality, the downstream costs are extreme, and we've encountered this quite often. So I'm going to talk a little bit about high definition magnetics, because this is really the next level of exploration and finding where the good stuff, the gold, the copper, the minerals are. We find it requires precise surveying. It's not just go out there and walk it. It needs very careful planning and execution. We follow a plan where we constantly QA/QCing with our processing partners via Starlink, and we have to monitor our speed, height, and incredibly closely controlled. So, what's a big deal about high definition magnetics? Well, the one on the left is traditional helimag taken in around 2010. The one on the right is from a UAV mag. The definition is 5 to 7 times clearer, and the geologists out there would appreciate how useful that is. A quick project we did down Tujuh Bukit in East Java. They were interested to see what this technology could do. We did photogrammetry, we ran the LiDAR over it, and then we did the high definition magnetics and draped it over it. That little circle up in the top, the analysis from the Intrepid people, without knowing anything about that particular area, advised them to drill a hole to around 120 metres. The exploration manager stood up and said, well, funny you say that, we have drilled the hole right where you said, and we did get an intercept of 120 metres at, I forget how many grams per tonne. I'll talk a little bit about Intrepid. They're based in Melbourne. They've been at the forefront of geophysics for a long time. There's a lot of geophysical companies use their software. They've developed some very, very clever tools in their software, and they have this capability to generate geological and structural frameworks directly from your magnetic survey. Again, the geologists would understand what that means, but it's automated, it's quick, it's fast. They've got what they call high definition targeting, and this is using a technique that I'm not going to bore you. It's a guy called Gustav Caetri, but it's 200-year-old mathematics that goes to the they go to the 11th derivatives, but the formulas would go from the floor to the ceiling 3 times. What it's doing, and this is the interesting bit, is that they're giving you the location of drill targets, and they're giving you a depth, and they're giving you an orientation. And as you all appreciate, drilling's a damned expensive business, but if they can give you that sort of information and prioritise your targets for you, that's very useful, very interesting information. The telemetrics, the EM, the expert geophysics people, they're another group that are developing very, very advanced exploration using geophysics. This is largely replacing what they used to call IP or deep IP surveys, where they'd run cables all over the place. And it was traditionally done with helicopters, but now they've moved it on to UAVs, and we're doing surveys down in Timor-Leste as I speak. And there, again, finding sources of your minerals and possible drill targets with greater and greater accuracy, and they're getting right down a kilometre or more. And so this is all evolving very quickly. But the fact that we've miniaturised the helicopters and can do it with UAVs means the cost for all of you comes down significantly. So overall, the future in this area is looking very good, both in the UAV space and also in the software space. We've got growth drivers like regulatory advancements, tech innovations. Everything's getting smaller and working better. The batteries are working better. Drones are getting bigger, conversely to they were shrinking. But now they're getting bigger, so we're getting up to 100 kilo lifts. Just an example, an M600 was around in 2020. It flew for 20 minutes. It was a very, very limited intelligence and a difficult UAV. 25, we're getting 40 to 60 minutes. It's got onboard AI, smart sensors, and a much, much better and more productive UAV to use. The Flycart 100 kg, 20 kilometre lift range, that's very, very exciting for the drilling community, the exploration community. And the integration of a very overused phrase, AI, I think it's in everything we hear these days, but definitely into the software, it's making exploration a much better or more successful. So that's a picture of a UAV we're using at the moment. It lifts 30 to 100 kilogram. It'll go 20 kilometres. And we work with SGI helicopters in Bali and Heli, New Guinea, because there's a crossover coming where your drones could only lift up a certain weight. You'd have to jump to a helicopter, and the crossover will be, I'd say, in the next couple of years, where in our exploration and mining industry we'll be able to lift things to remote sites fairly quickly and fairly easy, be that lunches, water, a drill bit, whatever it happens to be, but it's coming very, very soon. So overall, that's the end of my presentation. I would say that overall, UAVs and geophysics, it's mostly good, but there's definitely little bits of bad and ugly in there. So when you're looking for a survey, be circumspect, ask the questions, and thank you very much.
Yeah, so we now proceed to our second speaker. He is Mr. Chris Pitman, the Vice President of Ausenco. Chris is a professional engineer with 20 years of global experience in technical and senior leadership roles, primarily in the minerals processing, oil and gas, and industrial infrastructure sectors. Chris joined Ausenco in 2019 as the Director of Engineering in Toronto, before taking on the role of Vice President for their Eastern Canada region. And in November 2022, he relocated back to Australia to assume the role of Vice President for Queensland, where he oversees the operations of the Brisbane office. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the resurgence of mining in the Philippines, Mr. Chris Pitman.
All right, well, thank you everybody. So I've been coming up to the Philippines for the last 3 years or so now, and there's been a lot of talk about how Philippines is globally significant from a resource perspective, and how important it is to unlock this, and it's undeniable. Our own CEO was on a podcast fairly recently talking about the potential in the Philippines from a geological perspective, but that there are significant challenges to overcome in order to unlock it. There are a number of ways to tackle these challenges, but nothing is going to motivate all those shareholders more to do what needs to be done than to have an undeniably robust, economically sound project. So unless we can unlock this potential, these projects are just going to remain rocks in the ground. We obviously need to respect the governmental, environmental and social elements to these projects, but we need to look to solutions that actually unlock this potential and turn it into reality. So a little bit of forewarning. As Roderick said, I am an engineer, and so I wanted to set the scene with a few of my favourite quotes about engineers to help set the scene about what I'll be talking about today. So the first one, an engineer can do for $1 what any fool can do for $2. The second, perfection is not achieved when there's nothing left to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. And the last one, probably my favourite, the optimistic sees the glass as half full, the pessimistic sees it as half empty, an engineer sees it as twice as big as it needs to be. The common theme here is around optimization and making something that's fit for purpose. But if you dig a little deeper, I think it's about looking at problems differently. Having the guts to challenge the status quo in search of a greater good. Maybe I'm just a little too philosophical though. So it's no mystery that mining projects have been becoming more and more complex through the multiple stages from exploration, studies, design, through to construction and operation, and eventually rehabilitation. There's so many more areas and elements that need to be considered now than, say, 20 years ago. Things like ESG, community engagement, closure planning, these weren't talked about 30 years ago, right? Now they're non-negotiable. Not to mention all the physical infrastructure that goes along with it. So in order to unlock these projects, we need to unlock the value. Now the resource in the ground, we can't really change that. Obviously the commodity price is what it does what it does. And in operations, that's operations. You can't really add a lot of value there other than pushing your plant a little bit harder. But nowhere can you add more value to a project than in the study phase. This is where ideas, this is where the ideas are. This is where you can unlock the potential, safeguard the future, bring forward socially, environmentally responsible solutions. Value is created in the study phase. Construction, commissioning, rehabilitation, you can preserve that value, you can destroy that value if it's done poorly, but you can't add the value like you can in the study phase. So if this is where value is created and this is how we're going to unlock projects, and then I'm curious why they get so little attention paid to them in the grand scheme of things. Studies aren't just a tick box exercise on the way to executing your project. So every year, EY releases the results of a survey that they do, that they conduct of senior leadership at global mining and metals companies globally. highlighting the 10 biggest risks and opportunities that keep that leadership team up at night. For 2026, there's a new contender at the top. That's operational complexity. This is a result of, deeper. Lost the mic. Oh, it's back. So this is the result of deeper, more complex ore bodies, greater variability, and declining grades. The average grade of copper mined worldwide has fallen 40% since 1991. Rising costs and productivity remains near the top, primarily driven by energy and labour costs, and as does access to capital. Projects are becoming more expensive, higher interest rates, driving companies to look at more alternative financing models such as government incentives. I'm not going to go through each of these specifically, but all of these risks and opportunities could and should be addressed in your study phase. Of course, they can be dealt with once a mine is in operation too, but for some projects that just may be too late. So what is a study? Well, at its most basic level, it's the process of answering questions about what a project should look like. It consists of a diverging phase where additional questions and ideas are generated, and then it moves to a converging stage where those questions are answered and the facilities become final and the engineering more detailed. The outcome of the study is a feasible project that can proceed to execution. And so what does it look like? Well, unfortunately, in many studies, the decisions are made for the wrong reasons. Maybe you're driving a lower capex through cheaper equipment. Maybe it's trying to push tons or high grade the first few years. But without challenging the underlying assumptions behind these decisions, projects leave opportunities on the table, and unmitigated risks can come back to bite you later. This could mean delays in getting permits, or even more frustratingly, delays in getting funded. We see it time and time again, a feasibility study update or value engineering where that is trying to unlock the potential of these projects, but usually just results in incremental changes. Unless you can go back and challenge the conceptual decisions that were made and the assumptions that went along with them, you cannot improve the value. Anyone can do a study, and it might have all the right metrics. The communities behind it, all the environmental permits, but is there value being left on the table? Unless you get the fundamentals right, your great project might only be okay. It might not be a project at all. It's important at the study stage to consider the stakeholder drivers such as renewable energy, ESG, contractor engagement models which impact your contingency and risk profiles, understanding your product marketability and your end user requirements. Cost cutting might look good now but destroy value later. Short-term savings can lead to long-term risks. Owners should prioritise quality and robustness over speed and cost cutting. Understanding all the risks so you can work to eliminate them or mitigate them, things like test work, permitting, looking into your water and power, and then designing with the end in mind. How will it be built? And how will it be operated? Maybe there's some decisions you can make around things like modularization. How are you going to commission it? A lean, efficient design increases the likelihood of securing investment. And then there's technologies that might unlock the latent value. The goal all along is to add value at every stage of the study and to preserve that value through execution. The bottom example here might get off the ground. This one here, it might get off the ground. It might get funding. It might actually get built, but the market can generally see that there's more value to add. And even if it does get off the ground, the overall goal of a business is to make money. And with more money, you can unlock more projects, plan for the future, throughput upgrades, all of which is good for business, good for the industry. Traditionally, projects were able to follow a relatively segregated, linear kind of development. Grades were high, environmental and social governance was less strict, the technology was relatively straightforward. Each discipline could operate in its own box and drive towards an acceptable outcome for the project. But was it always the best outcome? They always got funded because they had plenty of economic benefit. But today, it's not quite the same. There's many more challenges, lower grades, more complex geology and impurities, less straightforward mining and processing circuits, higher degree of environmental focus, water scarcity, power scarcity. You can't optimize each area in a box anymore. The level of feedback between different scopes. For example, the tailings deposition strategy affects the process plan or the mine plan, which can also feed back into the process plan. It's all iterative. All of this drives the water balance, and the environmental permit determines how that water's handled. The interconnectivity of these disciplines means that iterations are unavoidable and arguably worthwhile when you're looking to optimize your project. Another development over the last decade on the global landscape is one of technology. There's many new ways to reduce water, reduce power, reduce environmental footprint using technologies that didn't exist. I know this is pretty hard to read, but these aren't novel ideas anymore. They're well proven at sites around the world. The example on the screen compares a conventional copper flow sheet to one we did for a client recently that utilized bulk ore sorting to get more copper into the plant and less ore. We rejected low value ore, used coarse particle flotation to reject the sand, ultimately reduced the tailings by 65%, and the coarse waste these days is anything but waste. In another project, we used those coarse tailings as the borrowed material to build the dam itself, and others have found ways to commoditize those tailings into a saleable product. All of this can add more value to your project. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I've been told that in the Philippines they love their NBA. So for a little bit of fun, I thought I'd draw some similarities. In basketball, the objective is to score points. In other words, to add value and to create opportunities to score. The more opportunities, the more value, the better. The point is not to run up and down the court as many times as possible, hoping that this time the opposition will mess up and you might get a point. Or that the commodity price will finally get you over the line and someone will finance your project. We take Steph Curry here. He found a way to score pretty efficiently. He generates value for his team, but how he does it is different every game. He doesn't run the same play against every team. He has to change it up, and it's the same with projects. The same approach is going to need to change against different projects. The plays that the coach draws up, or the strategies and technologies that your project implements need to suit your situation. He's also a team player. He works with the other guys on his team, the mining, the enviros, the geos, the metallurgists, to find those opportunities, sometimes working the ball inside, back out, an iterative process until the right opportunity to add value presents itself. I might be reaching a little bit here, but I'm sure you guys get the point. So it's easy to simplify studies and focus on the recipe from project management approaches, managing time, cost, quality, but this rarely gets the best outcome. Owners focused on achieving the lowest cost study or the lowest cost design usually miss value. The same goes for the study schedule. Obviously the schedule is important, but the process of generating ideas, running the iterative process and realizing the added value takes time and money. And more often than not, that time is well worth it. Everyone wants to go quick, we get it. The commodity prices are at an all-time high. Companies are cash constrained and they don't have bottomless bags of cash to pay for these studies, we get it. But when an extra 500K can save you 100 million on your project, that translates into NPV and gets your project funded quicker. It increases your free cash flow once you're operating, and that 500K doesn't seem like such a big deal anymore. Owners are often keen to release to market results of a bankable study and progress to the next phase to get higher levels of detail. But if the study has fundamental flaws, or outstanding test work that might impact those study outcomes, you're just polishing the proverbial. If the underlying approach is bad, adding extra detail isn't going to make it good. Going back to fix the foundation is the only way to build a project that won't fall over. We talked about the iterative nature of the projects. Waiting until the end to integrate all of these pieces only delays the inevitable. That an opportunity's been missed and the iterative process has to begin again, resulting in delays, extra cost, and the dreaded value engineering phase. And finally, the financial model. This is a tool to be used through the study, not at the very end. Decisions should be made, ideas tested, and opportunities evaluated against the financial model throughout all phases of the study to ensure that value is always being created and never destroyed. Now, everyone at Ausenco will tell you I'm extremely passionate about studies. With the stroke of a pen, you can create or destroy millions of dollars, which for me is where the real value lies in having a strong engineering partner. Right now, mining in the Philippines is primed and ready. We just need to unlock the value and turn the potential that's in the ground into reality. And my hope is that now you all appreciate the role that a comprehensive and robust study plays in unlocking that potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for that very incisive and comprehensive presentation. I just wanted to remind you that in Philippine basketball, an unspoken rule is to know and befriend the referees. So I'm certain that after Mike's and Chris's talks, you would have a lot of questions. So please ruminate on them and prepare them for asking later after our lunch. So we break off now for lunch of barramundi or pork belly. But do make the most of it because it's your Valentine's lunch already. I told Joanne to give each and every lady here a rose, but I think the rose garden in the mining project beside the tailings dam could not generate a lot of roses for today. So please enjoy lunch.
And that they've been able to plant on the area. So in the early stages for the dry stacking, we'll be looking at an area that's close to the plant, which is just here. So this is our process plant. This will be, seems to be moving. This is an old tailings dam that was operated by the Baton Buhai. There. That was operated when the Baton Buhai mine site was operating. So you can see a picture of the abandoned tailings dam. It's really a big environmental issue, that tailings dam. It's still leaching into the river as we speak today. Our goal here is to rehabilitate that old tailings dam as part of our project. And you'll see here that we'll be building a new retaining wall, and we'll be using a lot of our overburden to repair this old tailings dam and make it safe for the community in the area again. And that was a key aspect for us to help us get our ECC by committing to repair the old tailings dam also. We do have social services integrated into our operations. So you'll see here, this will be our administration area. And as part of our commitment under FPIC, we'll be also putting in a clinic there for the community to use as well as part of that process. With the new layout, or not new, but revised layout, we've been able to reduce the amount of trees that we were originally planning to cut by 20%. Now for the economics. So you'll see here the economics. Previously at an 8% discount rate, we were about 340 million, around that sort of number. And with the new study, with very conservative metal prices at the moment, in this study at $4.30 a pound, which copper's currently running at around $6 a pound, and 3,000 for gold. That's the basis of the numbers that you're seeing here. Increasing the copper price to $7 a pound after 9 years of operation, and based on commodity forecasts, that's still very conservative. At the moment, in 10 years' time, based on the market forecast at the moment, they believe copper could be, not will be, but could be, anywhere between $10 to $15 a pound, which is huge. So payback period on the conservative commodity prices is about 4.7 years, and a C1 cost of $1.73 a pound. You can see the gross revenue, quite substantial, and taxes that will be paid, including taxes and operating costs. Our current IRR on that model there is 24%. Pre-tax is around 1.3 billion with an IRR of 31%. The graph that you see here is the comparison between these two commodity assumptions of where we're currently running in the market at the moment on spot prices compared to the conservative view that we put on the metal prices today. So we're currently in the process of raising the money, and we have got some good responses for the project. And we've got a company by the name of Grant Samuels out of Australia that's helping us. Because we have a lot of offers to fund the project, thankfully, we engaged the company to help us sort through those to get the best value for both shareholders, the community, as well as the company, which will govern the outcome of the project. So the two different colours you see here, the lighter blue colour is the spot prices, and the darker blue colour is the conservative prices that we've used in the model. Most funding organisations like you to use conservative prices overall. From the spot prices, it ends up being about $1.9 billion pre-tax with an IRR of 42%, and post-tax about $1.2 billion with an IRR of 34%. Socioeconomics, also important. The government, along both local as well as national, want to know how much money they might get as part of the whole process. In particular, so this lays out the amount of taxes that the company would pay, the IP royalty, which is in fact we're probably one of the mining companies that stepped outside of the norm. Most indigenous communities that have been negotiated or FPIC processes, most communities end up with 1% of the gross output. We've actually agreed with the Balakop community of 1.25%. So 1% for the total community and 0.25% for the landowners. Then there's SDMP, for those that don't know the acronyms, Social Development Management Plan and Environmental Protection and Enhancement Plan. And these are the employment numbers that we'll be looking at. For the contractors in the room, this is the package plan. Anyone that wants to have a crack at doing an EPC or EPCM, that's the engineering team there. You can talk to them. They'd love to talk to you about this. So, subject to funding, MMCI will transition smoothly into early works. Construction Q1 of 2026. So we already have a water permit. We've now applied for the tree cutting permit, and because we've reduced the amount of trees to be cut by 20%, we think that the DNR will help support us on that as well. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have a number of parties at the moment that we're talking to. In fact, sometimes I think Neil from Celsius would say too many. But that's a good position to be in than struggling to raise funding. So we're looking to secure funding within the start of the second quarter of this year. We're looking to issue contract packages for the early works and long lead items. Commence early works. You'll note on the previous map there is a bridge across the river. Not many mining projects have a bridge, but anyway, we'll have to have one because there's no way else of getting across. And we'll start the internal roads. The DNC will be managed by Makilala Mining. The main access road will be managed by the province. And as I mentioned earlier, that road is already underway. We'll issue tenders for the mining contracting because we will be using contract mining for this approach. And we have prices for contract mining from local companies in the Philippines now. And we're looking for a process plant construction, either EPC or EPCM, and we're talking to companies in relation to that now. Ausenco did a great job, and they designed and we priced vertical packages as part of that feasibility study. We're not wed to EPC or EPCM. We're still keeping our doors open to different delivery models right now. But we are exploring actively now in the market for the final methodology of how we'll deliver the process plant and earthworks around the process plant. Really, apart from that, it's not a complex project. So you've got your administration facilities here, an early works pad. This area here is the plant, is the water treatment plant. Up here is the process plant and an access road going to it. And then this road that you might see here at the top of the page is really the access road leading, which will deliver the concentrate to the port, but equally we'll bring in all of our long lead items and the larger items from the port system in Purimau and other locations. And this represents the dry stacking area. We do have other dry stacking areas at the mine site as well, which we'll be looking to implement over the period of the mine life. So none of this would be possible at all without the support of the Balatok community, the provincial government, the national government, and various others, including Maharlika Sovereign Fund Foundation, which has helped us get to where we are right now. So we thank all those people that have given us that support. We are active, very active in the community. Currently, we're going through a training program. Our commitment to the Balatok community is they would have preference for employment. And so we're upskilling them through a memorandum of agreement with Tesla right now. They are being trained to do carpentry, masonry, fiscal management of money as well, along with electrical. And 100% of the participants in the Balatok community have also passed the national training skills that certificate that's required through Tesla. So it's just not the training is being conducted on site, but they go down to do their skills assessment. So 100% of them are passed, which is outstanding. So we're looking to strengthen the stakeholder support, engagement of manpower, as I mentioned, through the community. There'll be too many jobs for the Balatok community, so we will bring resources in from outside. Convening the capacity building for the MRFC multi-partite monitoring team which is already underway, and social preparations, which I mentioned earlier. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
I've come here today to introduce and give them an insight on what can be achieved. But at the end of the day, it's technology at a very good price that assists explorers to find the good stuff.
Thank you. I think if we did a survey of the room, each of us or a majority of us would have a small drone in our cupboard or something. I remember Fernando, who is trying to leave now, was in possession of a drone, and in our drunken lunchtime, I threw it into my swimming pool, and it hasn't worked since then, right? But certainly, we call that simply a drone, right? And in the Philippines, we have the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines that has issued certain regulations on the use of UAVs. But moving on to Ausenco, my question is that you mentioned that building a successful mining project certainly has challenges. And in the Philippines, for example, what among those that you have identified as challenges would be the top 2 areas of challenge for a mining company that they face?
Thank you. I would argue that the biggest challenge, I think, is one of government permitting and the processes with regards to getting a project permitted. There's obviously the local challenges that are built into that as well. But the second would be probably one of ore body. The ore bodies are undoubtedly good, but challenging in their own ways with regards to where they are. Certainly with Makilala's project, the topography. We're finding these ore bodies under mountains, and you have to find ways to extract that ore efficiently. If they're too expensive, they're not going to be projects. So, and they're not the only project that faces that problem in the Philippines either. So, I think that's certainly another of the challenges that we see a lot of projects here having to face.
Yeah, perhaps Peter can confirm or deny the challenges identified specifically for your project as well.
Thanks, Nicky. Yes, I think Chris pretty much got it with the 2 that you mentioned. I guess just to expand on the first one, I'll just reiterate that the national government, DNR and MGB, has been very supportive of our project to get it to where it is. But between government departments, there is still misalignment in relation to how you obtain the permits. And I'll just give you one example. So as I mentioned earlier, we were one of the first companies to go from exploration all the way through to MPSA for a copper gold project. And it was in an ancestral domain. So as an example, the MGB would say under their checklist that you must have an ECC and you must have an FPIC and a certificate of precondition. But the NCIP would say, you must have a mining permit before you can apply for the certificate of precondition. So you see there's a misalignment in between the requirements of the different government agencies. So we were lucky that we were able to explain that to the DNR and MGB, and therefore the only way to get around that was to issue us a conditional MPSA. So we could give that MPSA to the NCIP, and we could allow us to go through the process on a time limit that we must have a certificate of precondition. We were very lucky. We got it 1 week before the time limit was up. So it was very tight. So it's things like that. Still, differences between the FMB, the EMB, the MGB, there's a lot of overlapping requirements that don't actually fall into line to allow you to get to where you want to go. So I think that's one of the key challenges, and as I said, we were lucky that we had the support of the national government to get there. I guess the second one, which has been a challenge for us because we started our funding process almost 2 years ago, was we're very lucky that there's been a change in the commodity markets which make concentrating high demand and short supply, and that has meant that funding groups have now approached us rather than us chasing them. Because the Philippines is not the easiest country to raise money to build these sorts of projects. So with the change in the commodity market, which I guess I haven't seen in my career as much as what it is now, that really gives us the opportunity to build this project. And for other companies that are developing this project, please don't waste too much time. You should hurry up now, while the market is the way it is. Because now's the time that we need to build on the capacity of existing mining operations and future mining operations to support the mining industry in the Philippines. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. One of the concerns in the Philippines is also the involvement of the local government units, and I don't think I heard that as being a concern for you, or is that ever a concern?
No, we're very fortunate. It hasn't been a concern for us. The provincial government, the LGU, and the barangay, and the tribal community of Balatok we're very fortunate. When we first went to Balatok to do our due diligence before I mentioned we bought these companies, because of the issue previously with the Batanguhay mine, people in the area are used to mining, it's not new to them. And there's still a lot of small scale mining going on in the area, unofficially. But the one thing that we listened to the community about when we moved into the area was we don't like tailings dams. Because of the rupturing of the tailings dam that belonged to the old Batanguhay mine site, meant that it collapsed and a lot of the tailings spewed into the Pasig River that went into the Chico River and then blocked the rice terraces of local farmers. And that took many, many months to clear through the system. In fact, there had to be actually a flood in the area from a typhoon to actually clear it all out. So you see, when we did our due diligence, while you got a tick in the box to say, yes, the provincial government, the LGU, the local downstream irrigators and farmers said, yep, you can mine, no tailings. So we were very lucky when we did our test work that there's no mine acid drainage, or very little. There's no arsenic, so the waste is very clean. And that allowed us to go down the track of paste backfill and dry stacking. If it was the alternate, like let's say Kampakan for instance, where they have high arsenic and high mine acid drainage, then we wouldn't be here talking about that project today, for us.
Thank you, Peter. I recall, Joanne, you had a question in mind already. Please.
No, I think I don't have a mic. I think I can speak loud.
Sige ma'am, go.
Actually, you were talking about it a while ago. Let's go into where's Joey Aison. Because if there's one person who keeps talking about delaying permitting, that's Joey. But it was very encouraging, Joey, to hear Peter talk about how, in a way, efficient they were able to get all the permits, no? You know what the time frame, it's a bit very efficient actually, right?
1 week to go.
No, but still, we've seen worse, right? We've seen worse, no? So I wanted to ask actually Peter, what did you guys have, or what was working in your favor, no? Although I heard Peter say luck a while ago, but apart from luck, no, anything you think that would have contributed it, or is it? You were talking also about acceptability of mining in the region, no? We know it's not a given for other provinces, no? But maybe you can talk more about that, because it's actually, for me, it's very surprising. So far, Peter, you're one of those, and thank you for sharing your journey, to hear someone to say that they were happy with the processing, with the permit process. That's something new for me. So happy to if you can talk more along those lines, especially because you were coming in, right? Did it not scare you? Red tape, bureaucracy in the Philippines. It didn't discourage you, but maybe you can expound more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mum. So, I'm not new to the Philippines. I've been here almost 20 years. So, nothing frightens me anymore. Almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
Traffic, perhaps.
No, but it's a good point, Mum. I hear, and let me told lots of stories today, I'm sorry. But I guess when I first came to the Philippines, I was an expat and thought, I know how to get permits done. And that was on Tampakan I came here. We built a wonderful feasibility study. I can still remember, it was 67 boxes we shipped into the MGB. And if I go in the MGB today, they're still sitting in that corner.
Unopened.
Untouched. I can resonate with that, but equally, when we started this up, I must say that we had learned some lessons. MGB has a checklist, and if there's something in a heading that doesn't match your feasibility study, then it probably goes in the corner with the Tampakan feasibility studies. So it's a checklist approach, and yes, they're a government agency in the Philippines, and we understand that you have to comply. You can't think that you know how it should work, how it should go. You have to comply. No matter how sometimes crazy it sounds, you have to comply. We also have a girl here. Where is she? Oh, she's left. So our permitting and compliance girl, I must say she was one of the assets of our company, or is one of the assets for our company. Nothing ever phases her. She doesn't get upset. She buys donuts and has coffee with people in the national government. And some days I joke and say, "Oh, you must have a seat at the MCB, at the MGB." But it's that sort of approach that you must have. Build relationships. No different to anywhere else in the world. You have to build relationships with the people that you're dealing with on a daily basis. You have to make sure you understand the process. If you deviate from that process, you have to have a good explanation of why you deviated. As I mentioned in my speech, it was still challenging in relation to different levels of compliance between different government agencies. But through those relationships that we still have today, we've been able to demonstrate to be able to sit down and talk to the government agencies to say, there's a problem here. Can we put forward an approach on how it can be fixed? Well, not changed, because you can't change stuff within the government easily, but not bend the rules, but how do you work around that to get the result that we're looking for? So I think that's my experience. She's not here, but anyway. Look, I think that's our experience. We have a good relationship with all the government departments. Sometimes we say no, we don't always say yes, and they respect that sometimes as well. So our experience today has been a good experience, not a bad experience.
Very good. An applause for that very personal and enriching experience. So Peter and I and Neil here have been involved from way back in the Tampakan project, and that's how we know each other. So those experiences are certainly rich, right?
A lot of learnings there.
Right. So any other questions, please, from the floor? I go back to Myke, if there is none. How would the mining industry be able to avail of your services if they're quite interested?
Oh, that's pretty easy. Just give me a call. Or go to the website and we'll do that. I'm in the process of setting up an office here, and I came here really today to meet this group, amazing number of people, and the projects you've got going on. So yes, certainly give me a call or go to the website, and I'll be back here in March and looking to establish a presence here permanently. I've got a quick question of you, Peter. And I'm going out of country here. In Indonesia, we have a very, I call it unpleasant regulatory environment for getting new mines going. And in particular, there's one department that we trip up on constantly. It's a forestry department, and the Mardavai people have got embroiled in that once again, as you're aware. And I've seen projects disappear into forestry for decades. I was just wondering if you had that. Is there a forestry department here that you have to go through that process?
It's called the FMB, Forestry Management Bureau.
Yeah.
So yes, there is, and generally it depends upon the footprint and the amount of trees that you want to cut, whether it's dealt with at the national level or at the regional level. For us, now that we've reduced another 20% of the trees that need to be cut, it's dealt with at the regional level. So, and to compliment you on your approach there about using drones and LiDAR, we actually did use drones and LiDAR on doing the LiDAR survey for our project. The contractor actually lost a drone as well.
We'll find it.
No, I don't think we will find it. But we've used the drone and
It's like in Afghanistan.
Oh, man. I get blew up, Nicky. But we did use drone technology and software. Where's Jake? He's there. He's our GIS guy. So we did use drone technology, and we used the LiDAR for tree counting as well. The DNR and FMB are only just starting to use LiDAR now for tree counting. They might say that it's plus or minus 60%. So, but I think that comes back to the serviceability of the LiDAR and the drone and the software that you're using. But we have used it for tree counting as well, and it appears on this process the DNR will accept the drone technology and the tree counting that we've used. It still has to be pre-checked, because here in the Philippines, when you apply for a tree cutting permit, you have to count 100% of the trees that you need to cut. And on a project like Tampakan, it would have taken them 25 years. Our tree counting and the amount of trees we need to cut isn't anywhere near as big as that. But they are trying it from the point of view that they're bending in relation to that technology to try and speed up the process of developing projects, in particular in forestry areas. So that might be another service that you could do.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Moving back to Chris, I recall you mentioned something about a next generation approach to a project. I was wondering how that you would apply that to the Philippine scenario, and how Ausenco would be able to help its clients.
I mean, we work globally. So we've seen a lot of different challenges, and we've been able to implement a lot of different technologies to those challenges. I mentioned ore sorting to improve the waste to ore ratio going into the plant, which reduces your tailings, your ultimate tailings stream. Things like coarse particle flotation, which can reduce your water consumption. You use less power in your grinding circuit. Also reduces your tailings stream. There's a few projects around the world now lately where, as I said, we're able to take that coarse particle, it's more of a sand, and use that with binding agents to build the tailings dam itself. So not only are you reducing the amount of tailings you need to store, but what you've taken out of the tailings you're now using as the borrow material to build the dam. So, technologies like this make your tailings footprint smaller, the amount of material you need to borrow to build that dam, the amount of water that you're using, things like dry stack tailings. This is not a new technology by any means. We've done it all over the world, but it's relatively uncommon in this part of the world. I think it might have been you, Peter, that mentioned dry stack tailings in Indonesia with high rainfall. We're doing a project, our second project in Indonesia for dry stack tailings. So these global technologies are coming up all the time. There's new technologies being developed and implemented in places like South America, which have some huge copper projects, right? And so they're able to really be the breeding ground and try a lot of this new technology. But there's no reason we can't take that technology, that global learning of technology, and apply it to solutions locally. I'm not saying that all of it is going to apply here, and it's going to be a project by project approach as to which technologies add the most value. But I look at a mine that's been operating for over 100 years, I think it is now, Mount Isa, for Glencore. It's one of the simplest flow sheets as far as processing goes. There's no real. They developed the Jameson cell as part of that. That's a technology that came out of Mount Isa, but they haven't really brought in any other new technology since. So there's a lot of technologies that even Mount Isa could be implementing from around the world. So I think working with someone like Ausenco, and there are others as well, but we see the global stage and what's being used, and so being able to implement that where it's appropriate in the Philippines, I think is where we can really help to add value.
Thank you. Perhaps just a last question for Peter. So you've been able to engage with the host communities, but given the timeline that you have for the project, I was wondering how you would be able to maintain the trust and the confidence of the host communities to lead to your eventual opening of the project.
I think that's a very short answer to that is continuous engagement. So we're actually living in the community. Myself, Jane, Annie. Jane's only just come back from the community. Jane, by the way, is our Chief Operating Officer for Makilala mining. And I guess we spend time there with the community. We listen to them, we attend their festivals. In the Balato Community Festival, you have Carabao. So I've actually worked with the elders preparing the Carabao for one of the festivals. So it's those sorts of things that you need to immerse in the community to understand their difficulties. And equally, as an example, we hold a monthly Council of Elders meeting where we all attend and we put forward exactly what we're going to do for the month. We listen to any concerns they have, they listen to us. The NCIP has been in attendance at those meetings as well. And so it's really about the engagement. They also sit on our MRFC meetings, along with the church. The Catholic Church also sits on those meetings. So they also understand what we're doing in the area. So it's really that continuous engagement that we need to continue with. And they appreciate things like the skills-based training that we put in place with TESDA, which will prepare them, maybe not just for our project, but for other projects. So that's our approach, and I think it's been successful today. We've proven that success, but we just have to maintain it, because if we let that down, all the mineralisation in the world will always stay under the ground if you don't have community support and stakeholder support.
Very good. So very wise words from Peter, and we wish you all the best in your project. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank again Chris Pitman, Peter Hume, and Myke for their very engaging presentation.